Hello, gentlemen and audience. Thanks so much for coming and being out here for the last day of the Real Estate Technology Conference. We're pleased to be here with a great group of technology-driven experts, and we're going to start with Marcus. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, what your role is, and your company?
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. My name is Marcus Wilson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations and Systems for the Bainbridge companies. We are both develop and manage multifamily assets, both third-party and owner manage. And I am over the ERP, the management of the ERPs, both the two that we use currently right now, and all the integrations of third-party ancillary products such as utility billing and things of that nature that integrate within those systems. So I'm over the support of that and the revenue management.
Great. And Christopher Blackman, you're from the Empire State Realty Trust. What do you do there?
Hi, Chris Blackman, Chief Information Officer for Empire State Realty Trust. In case you don't know us, we own the world's most famous office building, the Empire State Building. What do? Anything that touches an outlet is what goes through IT. So we handle everything in the entire tech stack, cyber, app dev, networking infrastructure, help desk, and also we manage the Empire State Building Observatory, which is the attraction on top of the building.
Excellent. And Sean Nealon, you're with Brookfield Properties. You're kind of covering it all. Tell us what you do for Brookfield.
Sure. So Sean Nealon, I'm the Global Head of Cyber Information Security for Brookfield Properties. If you don't know Brookfield, Brookfield runs about 320 million square feet globally. We are cross-vertical, so we cover every area of real estate. And my role is to ensure that we have cybersecurity built into all of our companies and portfolio companies, because Brookfield Properties is actually about 50 companies in one. So we have a large number of IT groups, we have a large number of assets, we have a large number of things that are constantly coming up, and so I oversee all of that and provide strategy, governance, compliance, and in addition I also oversee data privacy from a technology perspective.
Excellent. So the last couple of years we've seen a really incredible ramp up of technology, but we're really focused on what is happening today and going in the future. What have you seen as to be the biggest single impact that you've seen driving technology in real estate these days? And Sean, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. It's interesting. So in my perspective, it depends on the vertical, right? Because in every area we're focusing differently. So if we talk about multifamily is very much focused on the tenant experience and creating smart technology within the properties and within the apartments. If you look at office, it's also focused on tenant experience, but it's tenant engagement apps. A lot of focus on ESG and making sure that our buildings are efficient as possible. If you look at retail, we're focused on people counters, traffic, making sure we understand where traffic is going, how people are moving throughout our properties, how the space is being utilized. So it really varies by group, but the heavy focus has really been a lot of automation. We're investing heavily in RPA and different automation tools. We're investing heavily in ESG and those technologies.
Great. And Chris, how about you? Is it mostly external changes or internal changes that are driving the impacts that you're seeing?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. The external changes, they all come in, right? So, everything you said is exactly very similar to what we're working on, right? It's that whole digital transformation, and what does that mean? RPA was one, APA, right? Analytic process automation is another that we're really focused in on to drive the business, to help get information and insights into things that we normally wouldn't have. If we look back even 2 years ago, looking at spreadsheets and everything, now with this automation across the board, the analytics that we're getting into, it really helps drive our business and drive revenue in different areas that we didn't even think of before.
Thank you. And Marcus, I know that you've been dealing a lot with internal changes, right? You've really transitioned the way that your company does business. What's been most impactful for you all?
Wow, the most impactful thing for us is that in the past 2 years, we just brought on a second platform to manage properties. We wanted to become a little bit more flexible and competitive in the industry, so we brought on a second platform to manage properties. The biggest challenge there is we have witnessed is the amount of data that we've gotten. So much so that our biggest focus for next year is to establish a culture of data-driven decision makers. That is going to be one of the biggest challenges there, from getting everybody to making arbitrary decisions based on what they know throughout their history or experience, to actually using the good amount of data that we have and formulate it in such a way that they're able to go from hypothesis to validation within minutes, rather than taking 2 weeks to understand what has happened on a particular asset.
Yeah, we do end up having a huge amount of information, and it's really being able to leverage that and really understanding what types of technologies you're using depends on whether you want to build it internally or if you buy it from external vendors. Chris, I know you deal with a lot of different types of vendors, and you've tried to build some things internally as well. Tell us a little bit about your experience about building versus buying and how you make that decision.
You know, that's the $1 million question, because it could end up costing you $1 million if you decide wrong. I won't say that's experience. I'll keep quiet on that. But I think you really have to weigh, what is the ask? What is the business looking for? Does the business even know the ask? Do they know what they want, or is this something that they're hearing from somebody else or a challenge? So understanding what the needs are, getting that business requirements document, BRD, clearly defined, and looking at it and say, one, are we capable to build something ourselves? Do we have the resources? And if we do build it, are we going to be able to support it going forward? So for me and our company now, we used to take that build approach, and now we've really pivoted to say, let's buy. There's enough out there. There's enough resources out there. There's new Proptech companies coming out that are addressing these issues that just were not there before, and hence the reason why people decided to build before. So for me, I think the answer is buy. If you're big enough and have a big enough team and you need to solve for that maybe 10% that you can't solve for with something that's on the market, well then you have to explore it further.
Great. And Sean, you deal with a lot of different types of decision makers within your large organization at Brookfield. What do they look for, and are there different choices that people are making for the return on investment? It's not only dollars, it's time. What are your decision makers asking you to look at for new technologies, and how do they judge whether that's a good investment for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a few things. Obviously, what Chris said, there's so many good solutions out there now to make it easier for people to buy technology, but what they really look at is what is going to be the net cost of it, and is it a strategic advantage for us to build it? So if there's something that would be very strategic for us that we think would be advantageous for us to have internally and just be ours, we might build it. But I'd say probably 90% of our technology stack, frankly, is buy. We focus heavily on the buy and customize, and I think the reason we do that is it's much more supportable. So when you can buy a great technology and tweak it for your needs, it works better. One of the advantages of Brookfield scale, though, is if we find a company that is really good and strategic, we will also invest in it or buy the company. So we have that partnership too, that not only are we investing in it from a real estate company to use the software, but we also may use it from an investment perspective to help the business grow and become larger.
So you're almost in the middle there. You'll invest in it, and then you'll become the stakeholder who has to explain what's going wrong and how it's working. So those technologies are actually looking to you to not only be the client, but also to be the critique.
Yeah, it's a strategic partnership, right? So there's certain companies that we've invested in recently that I've helped, and I meet with them probably every other week, and we'll talk through sort of what are the use cases that we're looking to solve, what are the features that are missing, frankly, from the platform, and that would really help us. But even in companies that we don't necessarily invest in, there's always that sort of back and forth. We have a tendency when we buy something, we invest in it heavily, we buy a lot of it. So we have the leadership of the companies that we can talk to and sort of give feedback to. And it's been really useful from that perspective. I previously had worked at smaller organizations. Mm-hmm. Having the weight behind you, it really helps to drive stuff forward. And I think that's what conferences like this help drive too, because as real estate companies get to know each other and find out what others are using, there's a collective weight behind what we're doing, and that we can use our influence to help push companies to do better or do what we need.
Great. And Marcus, how do you vet some of these vendors, and at what point in time do you say, all right, that's enough, we've got to move on, and how do we figure out who the next great vendor is going to be for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Vetting vendors, especially in the beginning part when you're deciding to make a decision on what you want to go with, you really have to allow your business to do the evaluation. Each department has to be a part of the process, and each of them have to have a certain specific amount of goals or things that they want that they have to have now. A lot of times when you go through the evaluation process, the vendor may come in and show you all the bells and whistles of it, and you get lost from what you really need. And once you get the product, it doesn't satisfy the needs that you were looking for. So the biggest thing is for us, and some experience I've had, is you have to know what your business is about, the culture of your business. You have to find the vendor that is going to best fit your company and the things that you're looking for. So going through that process, I would even set up metrics to measure, like a 1 to 3 grading system. 1 for doesn't meet my needs, 2 meets it, 3 exceeds it. And each department should measure each aspect that they're looking for, and then you all come together with the definitive score for each product that you're evaluating. That has been probably the most successful way of going about it, diplomatic way, because we do know that we all have relationships with vendors. And especially in the multifamily industry, we have relationships that we've established. So when we bring someone in, they may be more, say for instance, accounting or marketing centered, and that department may have a big desire to bring them on, rather than looking at it from a global standpoint of everybody that it affects.
I see. It's a relationship business still, and even in technology piece of it. So let's changing gears a little bit. Cybersecurity has really been at the forefront of so many of our concerns in real estate technology. Sean, I know that you really spend most of your time thinking about this, and I'd like to understand, how do you think the threat landscape has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, the threat landscape is difficult, and the reason for that is because previously you'd have more targeted attacks and things going on. Now it's a free-for-all. The attackers are going after everyone all the time whenever they can, and so we have a situation where we're constantly trying to make sure we have the latest patch installed. I'm sure all of you have seen the Log4j or Log4j emails going around if you work in technology, and it's something that everyone's trying to make sure we're patched for and updated and monitoring. But the ransomware attacks that have been going over the last few years, and I feel like every few weeks I see another real estate company that was hit by a ransomware attack, and the buildings are shut down or people locked out. It's a constant flow of attacks, and it's really troubling. And so that's why we've spent so much time and energy and money investing in detective controls, proactive controls, and making sure that we're patched and updated. The interesting part is when I first joined the company, a lot of it was on the enterprise side of technology, making sure we were secure on our corporate side, but we quickly shifted into the property side because those are ultimately our assets and our crown jewels. We want to make sure that our buildings aren't in the newspaper, that our tenants aren't negatively affected. And so we spend a tremendous amount of time working on that. And to the point earlier, I think Marcus made about the new technologies and new Proptech. There's a lot of new companies out here that are specifically targeting real estate technology for cybersecurity, and so we are heavily investing in those, using those, and seeing how they work for us. If I think back 2 years ago, if I went to a specific building that was having an issue, it was nearly impossible to get an accurate inventory of exactly what everything was in that building. And especially Brookfield, we buy and sell assets all the time. So when you're buying an asset, you're getting everything that's inside of it. And yes, we go on site, yes, we do audits, yes, we take over the network and we secure it. But to actually go and trace every cable and figure out what everything is difficult. So we focus heavily on knowing what everything is in our environment, knowing how it's vulnerable, knowing how we do incident response, and really preparing and doing exercises to be ready for it.
And Chris, you're in the Empire State Building, which is not only has physical threats, but cybersecurity threats. How do you deal with it? Is there something specific that you've had to deal with recently?
Well, we get attacked all the time, both on the cyber front, but also we get threats to the Empire State Building from a physical perspective. Believe it or not, almost daily, right? And those go through NYPD and other channels. But on the cyber front, It's really interesting because we don't really host any of our own websites, or we don't host any applications on-prem at the Empire State Building. But obviously everyone does have egress into their buildings. And really it's protecting that egress and ensuring that you're staying up to date. You're staying up to date on all your patches and knowing what's coming in, what's going out, where people have access. One cable moved in a room somewhere could just overwrite your entire safeguard and security. And also the people. Right? We've moved from, the cyber team being, the security people that manage cybersecurity, and we've deputized almost all of our employees. We could say all of them. Every employee is a part of our cybersecurity protection now. We've rolled out immediate notifications. Someone on a click of a button on their computer can raise a cybersecurity concern or incident. And just more training. We've done more phishing training. We've done in-person training. We've done cyber exercises across the board, just so it's not if, it's when. And so when the when does happen, you want to be as prepared as possible, and you want to be able to mitigate it as soon as possible.
Oh, I love to
Say something.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I love to expand on what Christopher just said. He really hit home on the training on the employees on the front line. I think that is a huge step that we're sometimes overlook. We think that sometimes because we have the new shiny boxes, the new firewalls and filters and everything, that everything is safe, but there's still a human element that we're missing. And a lot of times with all the new tactics that are out there, from social engineering, using social engineering from social media, your employees using those areas there to, how can I say it in its in its best form, putting their information out there. If you are your kids, if you're using passwords, say for instance, that are your kid's name and birth month, well, hackers are out there, social media and every other place, making these apps where every time you celebrate their birthday and put it up there, they know exactly. Jamie, born on 1985, we know that's her birthday. Let's try this to get inside her information. So it's just that effort there that we have to make to actually train and engage more the employees on the front line of cybersecurity.
That's a good hint for me. I have to admit, my password is my daughter's name and age, so there you go. I'll go home and change those after this. But do you rely on your vendors to do a lot of that training? How much of it internally do you expect to have to speak with your staff, especially now that they're very decentralized and off-site? Or do you expect your vendors to come with a really intense training package so that you can have them delegate some of that responsibility? How much do you rely on them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely a hybrid. So, we do rely on our training platforms because we use them extensively. As Chris mentioned, phishing, we do phishing exercises at least monthly for every user. We do, repetitive training through that, and it has an AI engine in it, so it knows what you need training on and what phishing you need. But more than that, we also do live training exercises. One of the most effective things we've ever done, and now we do it as a repeated process, is do a live ethical hacking session for people. So, on my team, I have some ethical hackers. We sat in a room and we invited everyone to attend, and we did a web conference as well so people could join. And we, actively spun up a fake Facebook page. We showed them how easy it was to do. We had them access it. We had them put in fake credentials intentionally, so we could show them how easily it was to do it. And even the scariest part is the way the technology works is when you put in the password, it automatically redirects you to the real Facebook. And most people are logged into Facebook already on their computer. So when they did this, they're like, wait, I put in the fake password and I got into Facebook. And we're like, no, here's what happened. But that shock factor of actually seeing your data exposed, how easy it was to do, literally took 2 minutes to spin up a fake Facebook page. That hit home more than any training that we have in our platform. So we try to focus on that, doing some live exercises. And then the other thing we focus on is a lot of content. So we send out a monthly newsletter that we call Protect Yourself. And the reason we do that is we don't want, it's not that we don't care about the corporate cybersecurity, but we feel like if you're more cyber aware in your personal life, you'll be cyber aware in your corporate life. So we teach people every month how to be more secure at home. So how to secure your Gmail, your Facebook, how to manage passwords, shared passwords across your family. So all of that type of information, and it gets people in the mindset of security in something they care very deeply about, their home, and then they apply that to the company.
Great. So what is the biggest challenge that you are seeing right now that requires a technology-driven solution that you're struggling with? What are the questions that you're trying to answer now? And Chris, I'm going to turn to you because I know that you're looking from today and future challenges. Just pick one, or top 5, whichever.
Well, I don't know if it's a technology challenge or we're going to try to leverage technology to do it, and I think it goes across the board, is getting people back in the office, whether it be our tenants or our staff, and make them feel safe. And it goes into indoor air quality. And again, this is all technology, right? Looking at technology to say, hey, do you feel comfortable in the office? Do you feel comfortable commuting to the office? And we are looking at technology across the board, and I know there's a lot of new vendors out there in the space that are looking to help landlords and owners, whether it be commercial, residential, right? I think everyone when we were in lockdown and in the lockdowns in New York City, the COVID was spreading in apartment buildings faster than it was in commercial buildings, right? So it transcends just that commercial thought of getting back to the office and safe. So we're looking at that. We have a big ESG and sustainability team that is very focused on this across the board and leveraging any technologies that are out there. How can we in the tech piece, the tech stack, help them accomplish those goals?
Have you found anything to be successful? I know it's your big challenge is to make sure that office building, the Empire State Building, is filled again. And I think everyone who goes to New York wants to see people back in creating that lively atmosphere. What successes have you found, even in the short term?
I think it's really communicating. It's really going out there. Like we had MERV 13 filters before we even started with COVID, right? Mm-hmm. But communicating that out, people, they don't even know what MERV 13 filters were before March of 2020. So communicating how we're recirculating our air, communicate how we're monitoring the air quality at all of our properties, how we put in scanning stations and everything. So I think it's that communication that has to get out there and show that, hey, look, we are a safe place. Obviously, crime in New York City, that we can't help on that, but we're trying our best to help that with our community efforts.
Great. And Marcus, what are you seeing in your communities? You work in multifamily, you have 19,000 units that you're overseeing. What kind of challenges are you seeing in the multifamily world that you've been encouraging your decision makers to use technology to fix?
Well, two biggest things that we're experiencing right now with our growth, onboarding. We use several different applications, from HR to support management systems to even our PMS system. So the biggest thing there is just onboarding new employees and getting that, minimizing the amount of emails that are sent from department to department for setup of users and things of that nature and giving them access. Due to the fact that of the recent pandemic and the turnover that is happening, that has really been a challenge with onboarding because you're constantly onboarding as you're offboarding other plays. So the biggest thing is, how do we streamline that communication? How do we automate some of those items? How do we automate some of those tasks? These emails, once something is completed, it's automatically sent to the next department, those type of issues. Now we do have a service support management system that we're currently configuring and using some of the automated features in there that will bring all departments under one platform. And once we input that new employee, everybody will get the information and they will reply back with their username, password, or whatever they're going to get and access. And an automated link, a PDF form, is sent to the employee from the system, letting them know all of their information, temporary passwords, and a link to each application that they will be using. Something like that, so we're not just constantly sending emails and gathering information together. And another item is acquisitions. That's another area, bringing on new assets. That has been a challenge as far as the communication, the various departments, the utilities. Microsoft Teams has played a huge role in bringing us together and being able to communicate about that particular project. What we were looking for now is using more automated features in items like Smart Sheet, which will, oh, was I supposed, I'm not sure if I'm, okay, it's okay to say.
We're okay naming names here. I think that's the whole point. We're all talking about the technologies that are working for us and that may not be.
Okay, well, using Smart Sheet and some of the automated features there that were going to help us make us aware when something is completed, it emails the next person for the next implementation of next phase of implementation for that asset. So that's the biggest challenge now. So we're just working through those kinks and getting that all under one process.
Great. And Sean, you're seeing, again, across all asset levels and even internationally, where do you feel like there's great opportunities for growth and for the existence of these new technologies to really propel your company forward? Where are the opportunities?
Yeah, I would say, you know, a lot of it ties to somewhat what Marcus was saying, is a lot of the automation and making things easier. So the two of the key focuses for us that are technology centric that we've been working with a lot are tenant engagement. And, you know, it's interesting, Chris brought up the getting people to feel safe coming back to the office. That's a huge focus for us. But even, you know, we also run multifamily, so it's having people comfortable while they're home and engaging with their neighbors because of the isolation of COVID. We want to make sure that everyone's engaged and able to have a sense of community around them. So a lot of it is around tenant engagement and tenant amenities. And then the other side of it, as I mentioned earlier, is RPA and automation. So, you know, we're doing lease abstraction, we're doing automation of finding. We do, you can book, you know, a showing right now if you want to rent a home, buy a home, rent an apartment. All of that is now online, and you can book a session yourself. You can go and you can do it. If you're, you know, looking to, even in cybersecurity, we have automated response for a lot of our incidents that come up, so that we have a much more timely response in everything we're doing. So across the board, automation is we call it a mega trend. We have a series of mega trends, and automation is one of the biggest one that we've been focused on, and will continue to be focused on for several years, because Marcus also brought up the turnover and the employees. You know, it's everyone struggling with employee retention, employee turnover, and the more processes we can streamline, the more high-level tasks we have for our employees to do. So we don't have someone who's just doing data entry. You know, all of that is the low-level, less fun work is removed from the process, and that way people can really focus on the knowledge work and the more fun work and have a higher sense of enjoyment.
Yeah. It's funny, both of you were talking about bringing, both Chris and Sean were talking about making people feel safe coming back in the office, where we're a little bit opposite. We're trying to make you say, hey, it's okay to be remote. We have allowed more, we've allowed more employees to go back home, not back home, but stay at home since the pandemic. And one of the things that has really helped with a lot, one of the things that have helped us be able to continue with that is having Microsoft Teams. So one of the things there, being there, that engagement there, and having the video chats and things of that nature has really helped us maintain, continue with the acquisitions, the onboarding, and things of that nature. But we have found that we've also been able to reach out. We have expanded our pool of talent by being able to allow certain jobs now to be remote. So we're not just looking in a specific area. You can be anywhere. And that helps us find some of the best talent that's out there.
That's great. I'm very interested to see that Meet Elise is the new AI for leasing. My director of property management's name is actually Elise. So she's been trying to figure out how does she fit in with the AI and the technology pieces, but also be able to provide that same sense of service and personal interaction, which is very important in real estate. Being in the office or being in your space is something that makes that community or that engagement work. How have you guys been dealing with this sort of lack of in-person community? I mean, obviously, everyone here is excited to be in a room and talking to each other and have there's a different flair and a different way of interacting. What have you done to really help support the community building that a lot of your companies rely on for their companies to be very productive? I know, you're the information guys, you're like community. I don't know, we want to process the data.
We as a company have taken a big stance. And if you look back a year ago, during the pandemic, we were very focused on office, right? Being in the office. Your comment around the opposite. Well, you're residential and you want to drive people to stay home, right? So you don't care if they're not coming to the office, right? But for us and Sean, obviously you have a large residential as well, but we want people to come into the office, but we also want to engage. We want to make sure that our employees are engaged. We want them to feel comfortable. We want them to feel that camaraderie that a lot of people, especially new into the business, are looking for, that didn't have. The people that graduated college during the pandemic, didn't go to a graduation or a virtual graduation. Now all of a sudden, a year later, they're coming into the office and not having that. People are working remote. So we've done a lot of programs in our HR department in coordination with the ESG team to have events, have coffee, have bowling, have rooftop drinks, have ice cream socials, right? Athletics. We have an athletics committee. We have a volunteer committee. We were out down in the harbor near Governor's Island, saving clams, right? I mean, things like this to engage people, right? And I don't want to say it's trying to create a FOMA, right? Fear of missing out, but we're trying to make it that everyone, if you're a long-term employee or a new employee, you can be engaged. You don't have to go. It's up to you. Right? But the offerings are there, and that is a big change because none of that was really done before. We had maybe a social Friday, every 6 months, but now we're really trying to build that.
Great. Well, it's now time to open up questions to the audience. And I know that James has us all writing questions on the app, so he may have a couple. But in the spirit of engaging the room, too, if anyone has questions, let us know as well. But I'll turn it over to James first, but feel free to raise your hand at some point, too.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, just to clarify, we do want everything to be on the mic as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because we'll record these sessions. So we have a ton of questions here, so we'll try to get through them all. Yeah.
Give 'em a
So
couple.
thank you, everyone, for engaging. So first question. What steps are your companies taking to protect employees' home networks since the workforces are following more hybrid models?
So I would say that is twofold. One is we focus heavily on the endpoint protection. So the phone and the whatever mobile device and computer that we give people, we focus on that. Okay. The other additional protections we give people is we do give advice. So I mentioned the Protect Yourself articles earlier. We've done this one more than once where we talk about how to secure your home router, how to set up a VPN for your house so that all your traffic is encrypted. We've talked about password sharing. So we give them general education, but actually from a what we do for them standpoint, we provide them the secure endpoint and the secure mobile device because ultimately it's their home. So we're trying to have a boundary.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the same sentiments as Sean. Pretty much the same thing. I know we have a lot more workers that are remote now than ever, so that's still something that we are being challenged with currently. So, but we are making sure they have a secure router, endpoints, things of that nature. We're definitely doing that as well, but looking into other areas to secure that connection.
Yeah. A great recurring theme we're hearing, sustainability. How are you using technology to support your sustainability goals?
I like the solar windows.
So we do a lot with data collection, centralized platforms. We have a global head of ESG, so similar to my role, and a lot of what she's doing is driving through different technology providers like Schneider and others to pull all of this data together into a single pane of glass so that we can do analysis.
Nice.
In our retail portfolio, they use a platform. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it's Niagara. They pull everything through Niagara back into one central point. They're integrating people counters with it so that as there's density of people, that the temperature of the room will automatically be adjusted based on the number of people there. Lights automatically dim or turn off based on the number of people in a certain location. So there's a lot of focus on efficiencies within the building. And then the other side of that is how do we have better renewable energy? And so we're a huge solar producer. Brookfield we have a Brookfield Renewables business, which is a completely separate business unit that is, one of the largest clean energy companies. But Brookfield Properties is one of the largest clean energy or solar energy producers in the United States as well.
That's
because we have
impressive.
so many rooftops. If you look at just retail, we have 130, 140 assets and massive roofs, and most of them, where it makes sense, we've installed solar panels.
Yeah.
And all the free land that we have, we also install solar panels. So we focus on all of the various ways, and then obviously when you talk about ESG, there's also the other elements of that. So a lot of focus on anti-slavery, anti-bribery and corruption. There's a whole host of teams that are just focused on that across our stack.
Wow, that's impressive. Really cool. Anyone else?
I would say we are very heavily focused on sustainability. I don't know if anyone know Empire State Building. We led the way in sustainability in New York City with the Clinton Klein Initiative and others, and our entire portfolio is run on renewable energy, right? So we made that announcement earlier this year. But if we look at it, there's a lot to it, right? Sean, your point around tying in all those sensors. I mean, we tie in every electric meter, every steam meter, every water meter, everything, and it all gets correlated back. We look at historical temperatures, we look at projected temperatures, occupancy. Something as simple as starting our plant in one of our buildings 30 minutes later than, let's say, that 6 o'clock time frame that is normally chosen could save north of close to $100,000 in savings, in cost, but also that energy, right? The carbon emissions, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, I would say if anyone's definitely interested, check us out, espsustainability.com, and look at some of the things that we've been doing.
Yeah, that's cool. I know Tony has been a big proponent, knocking on everyone's doors before we've all, kind of gotten up for everything. Is there a technology that you're seeing gauge indoor air quality to make it transparent for commercial tenants?
I know there's a few. I can't remember the names. I saw them in Realcon, but they're definitely out there that you can bring the technology in for you as the landlord, but also offer that service to your tenants. I just can't remember the name of the few companies I did see.
Cool. In the spirit of sharing best practices to organizations that are just starting to adopt modern tech, are there specific technology attributes that you prioritize in your buy selection process that provide you the flexibility to meet business needs today and into the future?
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so prioritizing, heavy question. Where do you prioritize? So if you're a smaller firm, you're just entering the Proptech and real estate technology journey, where would you, budget first, essentially?
So, Brookfield, as I mentioned, we have 50 companies. So we have some very small companies within our portfolio. The trends there that I see is they're focused very much on the startups. So, they've jumped over sort of the larger technologies that we've adopted, years ago, because there are new technologies that are easier to implement and may save you time if you don't want to have to go through the larger installations.
Yeah.
So I would say, we're highly focused in the smaller companies on the startups because they make everything easier. Everything's in the cloud. They don't need the infrastructure. But the core of it, at least from my viewpoint, that it's so important, and we were talking about this before the session, is having your house in order when it comes to IT and your properties is so important.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the technologies that are coming out, like some of these smaller portfolio companies, they're like, oh, we want to roll this out, and they realize they don't have the network backbone within the building to even implement the technology if they wanted to. So a lot of it is the basics of IT being installed first, so that you can engage with all of these technologies and get them installed and running.
Yeah, makes sense.
Great. Well, as you can see, these gentlemen touch a whole range of different technologies, from your solar to your client-facing pieces. You've been here and checked out some of the new technologies that James has been offering at RETCON. Is there any of these new technologies that are particularly exciting to you, or that you think that you want to bring home to your companies?
Well, there are two that I know we specifically saw. One was, for me, Paymode X, I believe that's the name of it, AP payment system, and also Hyro. I know two of my colleagues were spoken with, a couple of people there. So those are two items that we saw that really jumped out at us, especially the AP for me.
That'd make your life easier.
Yes, yes, yes.
Exactly.
That
People
would
on time.
Correct. Paying people on time and also just getting rid of printers and ink and checks and things of that nature, and just the backlog sometimes that it may cause. We got hit one time with the COVID, where half the AP was out, or majority of them were out, and there was no way to, because they weren't there to cut checks. There were several people that had to wait a week or so because they had to. I missed that word that everybody was using when they were, I'm sorry.
Remote?
No, quarantining, that's it. When everybody was
Yeah, we're trying to
I think
forget
we, yeah,
that.
we're
We're trying to
all
forget
trying
that
to block
word.
that from our memory.
I had to come out of my tech mode into my medical mode or whatever, quarantine. So that happened to us, and we were stuck for about a few days to a week without being able to cut checks.
Well, the real estate industry is notoriously pretty slow to adopt technologies, but you guys seem to be very much on the front end of it. Where are you looking as we head off? Where do you really want to put your time and your energy moving forward? Chris, I know that you've got 1,000 balls in the air. Where are you going to next?
Well, I think currently, we're focused on our tenant engagement, and I think that's what a lot of our peers are. But as I look forward, I'm really focused on building out our data lake further, right? And you mentioned, a company that is here that is I'm interested in talking to, and well, I would say engaging further, because we have had conversations, is Sherry, right? And how we can leverage them to help build our data lake further, and then really then get into that data warehouse where we can report further and provide more real-time metrics, right, to make those informed business decisions on demand. And then even further, hopefully, maybe not this year, but go into some more modeling off of that, right, to then help drive financial models and projections going forward.
How about you, Sean? You see a lot of technologies come your way, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would say that we see most of the providers that are here, many of the providers that are here, we're using in Brookfield in some form or fashion, right? I mean, because we have so many different areas that are focused on it. We do use Sherry in certain areas, and we do use a lot of we use VTS, we use several of the products. But from a global standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our focus is on automation. And the only other one that I mentioned earlier that we're actually getting a more of a global rollout to is our OT and IoT management solution. They're not here, but that platform is being used extensively across our companies, because it helps us to, all the teams that run the buildings and all the ops teams need this, because it helps them. From a security perspective, I want it, because I understand exactly what every device is, how vulnerable it is, what it's doing, and it has a whole lot of functionality built into it, and it's becoming a large part of our backbone of our cybersecurity. But in addition, this is one of those that we bought it from a cybersecurity perspective, because I was the one that found it and brought it in. But now our building management teams are really excited about it and using it. So it kind of ended up playing against both sides, which is nice.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, that concludes the session today. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you
Give a
very
round of
much.
applause.
Thank you.
Okay.